Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, babies in their diapers, welcome to the Tiberius Show with your host, Tiberius Boy.
That's me, Tiberius. Today, we're going to talk about some very awesome stuff. We have a video about being a worm, a book about forecasting the weather on TV, and we have a totally awesome guest. Today we have the one, the only, the amazing Dr. Chad Dumas. Chad is a former school principal and currently an educational consultant.
Thanks so much for having me on. I'm really excited to get to meet you, Tiberius, and share some thoughts today.
You're welcome. And today we're going to start off with the video of the week, and this is going to be a squirm.
And now it's time for the video game of the week.
And now it's time for the video game of the week. Today's video game is Worm Face. This game is made by Stealth Whale. Because it's on Roblox, you are able to play it on PC, Mac, Xbox, and even your cell phone. And it is free.
We love free.
Yup. And you might recognize Stealth Whale from their other games, Bee-Face and Stomp Arena.
Never heard of those.
Neither have I. So first off, when you start the game, you start on an island and you are a very small snake. You slither around and collect foods like apples and bananas that give you more length. I get it. It's going to be like Snake. The more you eat, the longer you get. There's a PvP area where you can die if you run into someone, and a PvE auto area that just gives you extra length the longer you are there.
Worms like snakes, huh? That sounds interesting.
Well, my dad and I tried this game, and we love the PvP area. We both got leveled up pretty fast, and we're the top 2 people on the server. If you're the longest snake on the server, you're listed as the king. You can also rebirth and start all over after you get certain lengths. Each rebirth allows you to move faster. I did not like that lag would get me killed because other people were faster and I could not see them because straight up lag. They're just like 1 frame, 2nd frame.
Lag, lag, lag. We do not like lag.
No, we do not. Well, I give Worm Face 7 out of 10 stars because I really enjoyed cutting off people and getting the kill points, but I did not like it when I would die for no reason and it was blamed on lag. Well, once you're at the top of the server, it is very hard to lose the title, you know?
Got some pluses and minuses there leading to the 7 stars, huh?
Because after you get the longest thing, you go out of the PvP area.
No more PvP for you.
No more PvP. You can't get killed. Boom. And now it's time for the book of the week. Let's talk weather TV forecasting behind the scenes. Well, this book's written by Amy Sweezy. Amy's a meteorologist that was a guest on my show. Let me to the back of the book. In fact, Chad, would you like to do the honors?
It is my pleasure. Have you ever wondered how forecasters on TV can tell what the weather will be? In Let's Talk About Weather, you'll find answers to these questions and more, from the science behind the weather to the tools and instruments used to measure it. Get a behind-the-scenes look at how broadcast meteorologists gather information and work to keep you safe during dangerous weather like tornadoes and hurricanes.
Wow. Well, this is not an AR book, so you don't get any points for reading it. But it is a great book about the weather, and I suggest that young kids take the time to read it. It seems to be designed for 3rd through 5th grade.
I love weather.
Now, this is less of a storybook, but instead like a teaching book. It talks about different types of ways you would get to see the weather forecast, like radio, newspaper, and even on TV. It talked about the signs of weather and how the atmosphere layers work together.
Fascinating. I love it.
Well, I learned all about the different instruments that are used to measure and predict what the weather will do. My favorite part was how they use a green screen that they are really pointing at nothing. They have a photo of the author doing your job, and she was able to see herself on the screen to see where to point. That must take a lot of practice.
I can't even imagine.
Well, I give Let's Talk Weather TV forecasting behind the scenes 10 out of 10 stars because I really learned a lot of cool stuff and liked that they have a glossary of terms at the end.
10 out of 10. That's a must read there.
Yep. Over 40 years, Lighthouse Central Florida has provided education, independent life skills, and job training to thousands of Central Floridians who live with blindness or any degree of vision loss. Whether it's picking out clothes in the morning or just moving around your community and serving Orange, Seminole, and Osceola counties, contact Lighthouse Central Florida at 407-898-2483 or visit them online at lighthousecfl.org. And now it's time for our interview of an interesting person. Today's guest is going to be so much fun. Today we have the one, the only, the amazing Dr. Chad Dumas.
Thank you. It's great to be with you.
Great to be with you as well. Well, Chad is a former school principal and currently an educational consultant.
I am. Yes, sir. I'm glad to share some thoughts with you today.
So first up, how are you enjoying being on the show?
Man, I am loving it. I've been really looking forward to ever since I found out I was going to be able to join you. Been looking forward to coming and spending a little bit of time with you, Tiberius.
Well, you're welcome. Well, okay, so you are listening as a school principal turned educational consultant. I would like to start with the principal job first. How did you get started in becoming a school principal?
So I spent most of my life in Nebraska, and now I'm in Iowa. And in Nebraska and Iowa and many states, in order to become a principal, you have to be a teacher first. So that's how I started. I was actually a middle school teacher. I taught vocal music, and early on decided, you know what, I think I'd like to be a school principal. And so I started working my way towards that by taking on leadership opportunities, leading staff learning, doing things for the district, that kind of stuff, going above and beyond to prepare myself, and then getting an advanced degree so that I could become a principal.
Okay. Well, how long did it take before you became a principal?
Gosh, let's see. I was a teacher for 5 years, and then I did staff development for 4 years, and then I was a principal. So I guess it was 9 years before I actually became a principal.
Wow. So were you a principal for public or private schools?
Public. Yep, most of my career has been in public.
Well, as a principal, does that mean that you are the boss, or do other people tell you what to do?
Oh man, I love that question. That's fantastic. So in some ways, the principal is the boss, but there's always people above you, so to speak, right? So as a principal, you always have superintendent, or assistant superintendent, and then they have a board of education, and the board is ultimately elected by the people of the community in public schools. So yeah, I definitely had a boss, but then I was also the boss for my staff. So at the school I was at, I think I had about 40 staff members who I was the boss for.
Wow. So being a principal, did you visit the classrooms a lot and talk with the students?
Oh, yes. So I typically had a goal of getting into 500 to 600 classrooms during the course of the year. So, if there's about 160, 70, 80 school days, so that's on average three or more classrooms every day that I would try to get into and spend usually 5 to 10 minutes in each classroom at least. That was like formal getting into classrooms, but then of course, lots of other times just to, see students or talk to a teacher or talk to a student real quick, in and out, lots and lots here and there.
Well, does it take a lot of formal training to become a school principal?
It does. So it depends on the state, but in the states where I've worked, you have to have a bachelor's degree in education, and then you have to have a master's degree in educational administration. And so as part of that, then you get a certificate. And so that's basically 2 years of going to school after you've got your bachelor's degree. So your bachelor's degree is typically 4 or 5 years, and then another 2 years of your master's degree to be able to have the certification to be the principal. Yeah.
Wow. Well, what is the best part about being a principal?
The best part. So for me, there were a lot of good parts about being a principal. I would say the best part was engaging with students and staff. in the hallways informally, at lunch, at basketball games, football games, getting to know people and and working to meet their needs so that the school became a better place for every student.
Mm-hmm. Now, my dad said that you went to a poor-rated school and turned into a top-rated school. How'd you do that?
Well, it's a lot of work. And fortunately, I got to work with really great people. And so my experience is that educators are really good, hardworking people, and they want to do what's best. And sometimes our systems of education don't allow us to work together and access each other's expertise. And so my job was to do that, to help make it so that we could work together and that we were working on the right stuff to be able to improve learning for students. And so it was thinking about what are the systems we have in place, what are the professional learning we have, what's the curriculum we're using, what are the assessment tools to make sure that we got the information we need to improve our instruction, all that good stuff to make sure that student learning was getting better.
Well, how long did it take to make the improvements?
So the first school that became a national model for improving student learning happened during my 4th year in that district. So we started seeing improvements really quite rapidly, but before it was nationally recognized was in the 4th year.
Wow. So what is the hardest part about being a school principal?
Oh, well, for me, probably the hardest part was you never know what was going to hit you on any given day. It could be, a mad parent, or a bullying issue, or a fight. I was a high school principal.
Oh,
Um,
goodness.
yeah, I mean, just anything could happen. You never know when you show up at work in the morning what's going to happen that day, and you've got to deal with it. And you've got to deal with it in a fair way, a just way, and a way that always honors learning, because we're all learning, right? So wanting to make sure that whatever we do is helping the students to learn and grow as people.
Mm-hmm. Well, what was the one thing that when you started to work in this field that you did not expect?
The one thing that I did not expect. That's a really good question. These are good questions, Tiberius. The one thing I did not expect, I think, well, the first thing that comes to my mind is that there were some parents who were really difficult to work with. And
To
I'm someone,
evaluate.
yeah. I mean, so it's hard to work with folks who are unreasonable, and so that was pretty hard having to deal with those types of things.
Mm-hmm. Now,
Yeah.
you are an educational consultant. Can you explain to my listeners exactly what that means?
Yeah. So now, as an educational consultant, I take my experience and background and learning, and I help other schools. So I many times travel to their sites, and I train principals, or I work with principals side by side in helping them to become better at their work. I train teachers. I work with teachers side by side in helping them to do their work. Basically, my job is kind of an outsider who comes in with a different perspective and different expertise to help the school get better.
Okay. So, how does working in this field make the world a better place?
Well, so as you know, education is like the foundation of everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we didn't have teachers and schools, you wouldn't have doctors and lawyers and plumbers and mechanics, or even teachers, right? So without education, none of that happens. And so my work is to help make sure that the education system is doing the best it can to meet the needs of each and every kid.
Mm-hmm. Well, what advice would you give to my listeners if they wanted to grow up and work in the educational field?
Oh man, um, education is a great career. It is a hard career. It is maybe one of the hardest. And it is incredibly rewarding because you get to work with young people like yourself
Mhm.
and see them grow and develop and become amazing human beings. Bring out your potential. And so, my advice would be to do it. Go after it and learn how to best be able to draw out from others their talents and skills.
Mhm. Well, what is the one tool that you use the most in doing your job?
The one tool I'd use most is without a doubt my computer. Without the computer, I'm sunk, right? I got to have my computer to access the
Without your
internet.
computer, the school wouldn't be in school.
Yeah, isn't it something like when I was in
Yeah.
school, we didn't have computers, and that wasn't,
Well, I mean, you might have them in the library, but
yeah, that's exactly right. There was a bank of computers in the library when I was in high school, but before that, we didn't even have them then. So yeah, computers are. I don't know how schools existed before computers, but yeah, that's a key
neither do
tool.
I.
I'm glad you use it. I suppose you're taught how to use it well for learning, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, good,
Also for
good,
gaming.
and for gaming, of course.
Well, what do you think would make your job easier?
I know the one thing that would make my job easier is, do you know, you're familiar with the movie Star Trek?
Yes.
And they go and they say, "Beam me up, Scotty." That would make my job so much easier because then I don't have to spend so much time traveling. Like tomorrow, I go to Houston, and I've got to spend half
Oh
the day traveling
goodness.
to be able to work with this school on Friday, and then I come home Friday night, and then I have to go again on Sunday to another
Oh
district in
no.
Midland, Texas, and so I'm traveling all day Sunday to work with them Monday. So if I could have a Star Trek beam me up Tiberius to get me from one school to another without having to spend a day traveling, that would definitely make my job easier.
I thought it was like making the kids listen to you, but I didn't realize that.
Yeah, my kids are adults.
Like that too.
Yeah, yeah. That's
So, when
awesome.
you were a kid, what did you want to do when you grew up? Did you always know that you were going to be in the education field?
No, I did not always know I was going to be in the education field. I wanted to be, so when I was in elementary school, I wanted to be a firefighter. And then I kind of thought about being a police officer for a while. And then I wanted to be a scientist because I love science. And then I was told I was wrongfully scared away from science by someone who I didn't even know, who said that you have to know a lot of math to get into science, and he scared me. And I shouldn't have listened to him because I love math and I'm good at math, and I could have become a scientist, but I didn't. And so then, and that happened in fifth grade. And so then I kind of was like, I don't know what I want to do. And then when I was in high school, I loved band. I was a pianist, and so I
Ooh.
decided I wanted to do music education. So there you go. And then from there, became a principal, and the rest is history.
Wow. Well, what is that one message that you want to get out to the kids all over the world about education?
The one message would be, you can do it. Keep working. Never give up. You got this.
Mm-hmm. What is
Maybe
the
that's more than one message, though.
like that comma, that comma, that comma?
There we
Because you
go.
can't
Lots of.
do that. You can't do that. I learned
Okay,
that in
okay,
fourth grade.
good, good.
Well, what is the craziest thing that has happened while working as a principal?
The craziest thing that happened as a principal. Gosh, there were so many crazy things. Um, so this is kind of a, I don't know if it's crazy or not, but I had the opportunity to open a brand new school. So when I was 1 year a principal in an old building that was like 100 years old, no air conditioning, um, you know, really falling in, and then got to move into a brand new building that was just beautiful. amazing. And so I think that maybe it was pretty crazy, being able to move in there and move all of the furniture and coordinate all those logistics and figure out in a new building, what does lunch look like? Because, when you go to school and you've got
Oh
procedures for,
no.
yeah, procedures for lunch and before school and after school and teaching people where the bathrooms are and, all the day-to-day procedures.
Well,
Yeah.
I read a radio show and podcast that talks about God during my Lion Strong segment. How do you include God's message in your work?
Yeah, so my work is on a very personal level, very faith-based, right? Thinking about how education is foundational society and how our work as human beings is to grow ourselves and to advance civilization so that, my kids are better human beings than I am, and their kids are better. So we're constantly advancing civilization. And so my work is very much about that, is advancing civilization and helping to draw out the best in each other.
Mm-hmm. Now it says in your bio that you are also an author. Can you tell me more about your book?
Absolutely. It's up behind me here, right here. It's called Let's Put the C in PLC. It's a practical guide for school leaders. So PLC is educational jargon, and it stands for Professional Learning Community. And what it means is that the adults in the building, in order to improve student learning, we have to work together. And so the C is community in PLC. So the book is focused on how do we create a culture where we have professional learning community together, improving our practice and results for students. And it was a finalist for Book of the Year in 2020, which was pretty cool.
Wow.
And yeah, it's still, people are still buying it. So that's kind of cool, a couple year and a half out. Yeah, it's basically what school leaders need to know to create a community.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I have a good question.
Okay.
My school has a CTP at the end of the year. What does it stand for?
CTP.
Because all the children think it stands for Child Torture Program. Is that correct?
I don't know. Is it torture for you when you go there?
Kind of.
Kind of. Okay. Well, yeah, I've never heard of CTP. So yeah, maybe ask your principal or one of your teachers. They should know, don't you think, what CTP is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
let me know.
Because you're a principal, I figured that.
That's a new one. We've got a lot of acronyms in education, but that's a new one. So yeah, let me know what you find out when you find out what CTP is at the end of the year.
But what was the first job that you ever had?
So the first job I had, so I had a first informal job, and then I had a first real job, and then and that was kind of I'll tell you all three. So there's three I'll tell you were my first jobs. How's that sound? Sure. So my first one was my parents had a preschool, and so as part of the preschool, it needed to be vacuumed and toilets cleaned and drinking fountain washed every day. And so my brother and sister and I, every day, would clean the preschool. And so that technically was my first job. It started probably when I was 7 or 8 years old, and we got paid, $10 a month or something. But it's like more like chores than a job. So then my first real job, which wasn't really a real job, was one day at the grocery store called 6th Street in North Platte, Nebraska. I applied to be a bagger. So sometimes, I don't know if they have them many times, but some grocery stores have people that bag your groceries for you. So I was that person. And so I went there and I worked one day, and I was 15 years old. And at the end of the day, I went to the boss and I said, so when would you like my work permit? Because in Nebraska, in order to work, if you're under 16, you have to have a work permit. And he said, what is that? And I said, well, if you're under 16, you have to have one. And he said, oh, we don't hire people under 16. Come back tomorrow and I'll pay you for your one day. That's it. So that was my first real job. And then, but my first real job was
This is a real job that isn't really a job.
That's right. My first real job was working at Kentucky Fried Chicken. in North
Ooh,
Platte, and packing chicken for people. So when you went in and ordered your chicken, I was the one who would put it on the plate and a biscuit and coleslaw and everything, and
nice.
get that out to you. So that was my first real job.
But was there anything you learned from that job that helped you be a better educational consultant?
Yeah, I've never thought of it this way, but now that you asked that question, I would say that that job really taught me how to listen to other people. When you're in customer service, your job is to make sure the customer is happy, and that's what you're doing when you're in Kentucky Fried Chicken, is making the customer happy. So you're listening to what they want and then serving their needs. And so I think
Mm-hmm.
as an educational consultant, that's my big part of my job, is listening to what people need and then serving them based on that.
Okay. So what was the biggest mistake you ever made, and how did it change you as a person?
The biggest mistake I ever made. I've made so many mistakes over my life. That's a really good question, Tiberius. Biggest mistake I've ever made. For me, I think about mistakes that I've made, and then how can I learn from them and how can I grow from them. So then, over the long term, then I don't think of them as mistakes anymore. Then I think of them as, a step on the path of growth and learning. Um, so, in terms of growth of path and learning, um, a few years ago, I moved to Ames, Iowa, and I was the executive director of elementary education.
Mm-hmm.
And the superintendent and I did not see eye to eye on a lot of things, and so I decided to leave my position at the end of my contract. Finish my contract, and then I left. And so at the time, I felt like it was a mistake taking that position and moving to Ames, Iowa, because it was rough. When you're working with
Yeah.
somebody who's your boss and they tell you to do things that aren't in alignment with your values, but you need to do them because it's your job, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was really hard, and it felt like a mistake at the time. However, since then, because I learned and I grew through that process, and it actually led me to becoming an educational consultant, something that I don't think I ever would have done without that quote unquote mistake of taking that position and moving to Ames.
So when you're not working, what do you do for fun?
Oh man, what I do for fun, I love sports.
Ooh.
And I not playing, I don't play sports, but I love watching sports. I love football is one of my absolute favorite things. I love soccer. I enjoy basketball. So March Madness is
Do you like
always a great.
watching bowling?
I do like watching bowling. Do you?
Yes. I
Yeah,
play bowling.
yeah, me too. I bowled when I was in. Yeah, I started in elementary school.
Nice. So do you play video games? And if you do, what's your favorite one?
I do not play video games, but my
Not
boys
even on your
do.
phone?
I don't, but my boys both do. They play Clash of Clans,
Ooh.
and there's another game too, but I'm not sure what it
Fortnite.
is. But no, I don't. I used to. What is it called? Candy Crush.
Ooh. Still
I
a good
used.
game.
Yeah. But I haven't played it in a long time.
Oh yeah.
What games
I
do you play?
I play shooter games. I know, not really, school appropriate, but I mean, shooter games are the most unappropriate thing that I've ever played. I play VR games. Those are a lot of
Oh,
fun. I like
okay,
parkour games. My favorite
okay,
parkour game in particular, Gorilla Tag. You're in VR and you're a gorilla with no legs. You have to move around with your arms.
okay.
So
Well,
it's
that
really
sounds
fun.
interesting. Yeah, that sounds interesting. Huh. Cool.
Okay, so what's your favorite book to read?
My favorite book to read. So, hmm, that's a good question. I would say so. I don't read a lot of fiction for pleasure. Most of my reading is nonfiction
Mm.
to learn to help me do my job better. And most books I don't read multiple times. I'll read it through once and I'll take lots of notes and then I'll go back and, reread my notes. I would say my favorite book is a book called Multipliers,
Mm.
and it's about how the best leaders multiply the skills and talents of the people they work with.
Mhm.
So they're multipliers. They get more out of people than they
Yeah.
think they can get out of themselves.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Now, can you tell me that one story? Rember, this is a kid show. What's
Okay.
that one story? Well, that you're not supposed to tell me about. Come on, you can tell me.
One story that I'm not supposed to tell you. Well, I'll tell you this. And it's not a story I do tell very often, but I think it shaped me as a person.
Mm.
And that is that when I was in middle school, there was a phase going on of students that would bully other students. Maybe you've heard of that, students bullying other students.
Yes.
And there were a few kids who were particularly big bullies to me. And I would come home every night just really upset about that. And my dad said to me, he said, "Okay, Chad, this one kid in particular, bullying me a lot." He said, "Okay, Chad, here's what you need to do. Sometime when this kid is not expecting it, you come up from behind him and they have no idea that you're there." He said, "You come up from behind him and you start wailing on him and you don't stop until someone pulls you off." And when my dad was telling me this, my mom said to my dad, my dad's name
Overheard.
is Ernie. My mom said, "Ernie, what are you telling Chad?" And my dad said, "Sandy, stay out of this." And he continued with me and he said, "You don't stop until somebody pulls you off. You just keep on going." So I never did it, but I was too afraid.
I would.
I was too afraid of the consequences that would come
Trust
my
me.
way.
I trust me. I have the same problem. I want to so
Oh.
bad, but
I didn't. I was afraid I would hurt my hand because, I've never punched anybody. So, I was afraid I was going to hurt my hand and then I was afraid I would get in trouble.
see,
But I
that's why
always,
you take karate lessons.
oh, is that why? Okay. See, I never took karate lessons. Anyway, I thought it was funny how my dad was like, "This is going to happen." And my mom said, "Ernie," and my dad said, "Sandy, stay out of this."
Well,
So
is there anything else you think my listeners should know about you?
let's see. Anything else? I don't know. I've sure enjoyed talking to you and sharing with you some perspectives. Oh, you know what? I bet they would find this interesting. So I've lived in Israel, and I've lived there twice. One time for a year, and the second time for 3 months. And I worked as a volunteer at the World Center for the Baha'i Faith, which is in Haifa, which is kind of in the northern part of Israel on Mount Carmel. Mount Carmel has the caves of Elijah or Isaiah, the prophet, at the head of it,
Yes.
where he had the visions concerning the second coming. And Mount Carmel overlooks the plain of Sharon with Galilee off in the distance. And so I was there for a year, my first time as a gardener.
Wow.
And then 3 months, my second time in an accommodations office, which took care of all of the housing needs for staff who were at the World Center for the Baha'i Faith. And so yeah, living in Israel for a year and then 3 months, it kind of changes a person, It kind of gives you a larger perspective on the world and on life and service.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you have a website or Facebook for my listeners who want to follow you?
I absolutely do. And my website is nextlearningsolutions.com. Nextlearningsolutions.com. And yeah, my Facebook page is just, well, I've got a personal one that's Chad Dumas, no spaces or underlines or anything. But I've got a business one, but I don't know that one. But on my website, nextlearningsolutions.com, it has a link to my Facebook page and Twitter and I don't know what else, LinkedIn, I guess.
Well, what is the one question that you think I forgot to ask you?
One question that I think you forgot to ask me. Well, you didn't ask me about my favorite foods.
Well, what is it? Or
Well,
what are they?
What are they? Well, so when I was in Israel, I got to really love hummus.
Ooh.
And I ate it so much that people started calling me Dumas hummus. So I don't eat quite as much hummus now, but you could still call me Dumas
I don't
hummus if
really
you
like
wanted.
hummus. It's
Well,
not
you
my
haven't.
favorite.
Well, you haven't had my hummus. If you have the store-bought hummus, it's no good. You need to have my hummus. So next time you're in Iowa, I'll make you some hummus. Or next time I'm in Orlando, I'll come over and make you some hummus. How's that sound?
Sure. Well, thank you, Chad, for being my special guest. Can you stick around for Math Corners?
I would absolutely love it. I love math.
Tiberius' favorite subject, it's Math Corners!
And now it's time for Math Corners. Thank you, Chad, for helping me with Math Corners. Last week we talked about two-step equations, and well, we did a word problem. I'm still not a fan of word problems, but my dad seems to be really good at finding more of them for me to do.
The more the merrier. Practice makes perfect, right?
Yep. Okay, here we go. Those 22 students in Mrs. Smith's second grade class each have a sibling or a pet. If 14 students have a sibling and 18 students have a pet, how many students have both a sibling and a pet?
Yikes. I need some paper and pencil for this one, Tiberius. Wow.
Yep. Wow, this is going to be a hard one. So you have 22 students that either have a sibling or a pet, or both. So that is the total, and that goes on one side of the equation. Then you have the list of students that have pets and the list of students that have siblings. If you add them together and subtract how many you have of both, you should get a total of 22. Okay, so your equation is 14 plus 18 minus x equals 22. Now if you add the 14 and the 18 and get 32, you subtract 32 from both sides, then you get a negative x equals negative 10. Divide by negative 1, you get x equals 10. And there are 10 students that have both a pet and a sibling.
Wow. I think I need a whiteboard. I'm not sure if I followed that one or not, but I trust you, Tiberius. You're the math king.
Thank you. Well, that one was harder than most I could do. This uses something that's called a Venn diagram. That is where you have two sets and a part that is shared in both sets. So
Venns are awesome, man.
That's a lot of T's, because... That's a lot. So, Chad, do you know all about solving two-step word problems?
I love word problems, and I love math, and I love multi-step problems. So bring them on. I love it.
Sweet. My teacher says that I would use math every day. Do you have to use math in your job?
Yes, I absolutely do use math in my job. Most of my math is fairly simple arithmetic, adding and subtracting, maybe a little bit of multiplication. So for example, like yesterday I was in a school district, and so I had a receipt from getting gas or something like that. So I have to record that on a spreadsheet, and then I have to add, receipts from different trainings, because those are expenses for my business, and that comes out of the income. And then you've got mileage, and that gets, so yeah, I get to use math pretty much every day. There's some sort of math I get to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much, Chad, for your help with Math Corners.
My pleasure. Thanks for letting me join in.
And you look very professional.
Thank you.
See Tiberius Smith Law.com.
You can call him at 407-801-2667.
Wait, you are not Chuck.
My dad can help when people get hurt. He loves to help people.
If you are ever injured at work or in a car accident, you should call my friend Chuck.
You can call him at 407-801-2667.
That website again is cwsmithlaw.com.
Offices, Orlando.
Does it actually have that much W's?
now it's time for the Heart of a Lion. As you know, we talk about the qualities of living by the heart of a lion, which stands for leadership, integrity, obedience, and nobility. Well, this week, we're going to talk about obedience. For me, I think obedience is being fully committed to doing what is pleasing to God. Well, the qualities of obedience are compliance with a good attitude and respect for the laws. And you know when someone is obedient when they follow instructions willingly and truly. Well, I seem to be getting better at this one. This week, I got all of my homework for the week done right away on Monday. This allowed me the rest of the week for only math stuff. I double-checked with my school sheets to make sure that all the work was done before I got on my computer for fun. I also did my work with a smile on my face because I wanted to have it all done early.
That's totally awesome, Tiberius. I love that.
So, Chad, did you see or use obedience at all this week?
Absolutely. And actually, yesterday I made a really concerted effort to be obedient to the laws of the road by driving the speed limit. When I was driving to a school, I wanted to make sure that even though I sometimes like to press the speed a little bit, I thought, you know what? I need to be obedient to the laws of the country, and that includes the speed limit. So I kept it at 55 miles an hour heading to that school.
Wow. Well, with all of the Heart of a Lion virtues, which is your favorite?
You know, I love these virtues, and I would say the one for me that's the favorite, oh man, they're all so close to each other. But if I had to choose one that was like just a little bit more of a favorite, I would say integrity. Because without integrity, what are we? Like, you know, integrity is, in my opinion, it's like living in alignment with our values, right? Living a coherent life. And it goes a long way when we are who we say we are, and we are who we believe we are, and we're that way whether we're at home or at work or with our friends or at the restaurant or wherever we are, we're living that coherent life.
Well, we should always try and be lion strong in everything we do, shouldn't we?
Absolutely. I love it.
Mid-State Fire has been providing top-quality fire equipment services for 3 generations to the Central Florida area. Don't wait for an emergency to repair. Call Mid-State Fire today at 407-246-8855. Get your fire extinguishers and emergency lighting for both your home and businesses by visiting www.midstatefire.com. That number again is 407-246-8855.
And that's our show, folks. I want to thank the one, the only, the amazing Dr. Chad Dumas
Thank you, my friend.
for being on my show. It has been so much to talk about today. I think we learned a lot about the public school system and how it works.
Oh man, I have loved being with you today. I was looking forward to it, and it has exceeded all of my expectations as high as they were for being with you today, Tiberius. Thank you.
Thank you. Also, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram on The Tiberius Show. And please be sure to visit The Tiberius Show on YouTube and like and subscribe. Also, be sure to listen to us next week on The Tiberius Show with your host, Tiberius